All right, welcome everybody. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Can you hear me? Is the volume all right? Okay, so welcome back to the Bureau of Experimental Speech and Holy Theses. This is our final Diction for Dollars event. This is very exciting. We've had, four so far? So this will be our last one. Tonight's will only run until 7:30, so we'll go ahead and get started right away. A couple quick announcements you should know is if you have participated in past Diction for Dollars, or if you end up participating tonight, or if you've done anything in this space whatsoever, you qualify to earn a Toastmasters of Fine Arts, or a TMFA, and you can receive that tonight at 8 p.m. We'll be doing a short ceremony between 8 and 9 and giving out those awards. So if you'd like to earn that, make sure you stick around. And if you wouldn't mind letting us know if you're sticking around, that way we can go ahead and fill out your paperwork ahead of time. So hopefully that'll help you get ahead somewhere. We can help. And then another thing to know is our newest and last issue of the BESHT Weekly has just arrived. It's available, our 5th issue. We have 4 other fabulous issues. They're all free. You can take a bunch of copies if you want. And there's a bunch of really wonderful goodies in here. And then also later tonight, right after the awards ceremony, we're going to be having a performance of a piece by Doug Barrett called We Connect Cage with Eastman, and I'll be a part of that, and some other people will be a part of that. It will involve some nudity and champagne, and we'll have some champagne for you guys too. Now, the way most of you have been here before, but just in case you haven't, Diction for Dollars. For Diction for Dollars, you can earn $1 a minute while speaking up here at the lectern. You don't have to speak in any way that makes sense. You can if you want, and that's great. You can also mumble or speak as slowly as you want. We don't really care. As long as you're up here, we'll pay $1 a minute, and we'll go up to 20 minutes. Now, we round down, so if you were to speak for 9.5 minutes, then you would earn $9. So make sure that if you plan to earn a certain amount, you go up to or over that time. If you haven't signed up already, come and find me, and I'll get you all signed up, and hopefully we'll be able to get everybody in tonight. Thanks so much for coming back to do this with us. Oh, and this is broadcasting live on the internet and being recorded, so make sure you're aware of that. So, is Frank Sanchez here? Yeah. So Frank is going to come up and read some poems, some old, some new. Let's hear it for Frank.
Yeah, my name is Frank. These first few poems I've read here before, and maybe you've heard them somewhere else. And then I'm going to do a few newer ones. Toward a performance model of sex, or please perform this poem again, and again, and again, and again, and again. Listen. I love the sound of slam poetry spoken aloud, but more than that, I love the sound of you. Saying yes and meaning it. So when you do, and I do too, we'll do what we do best together, undress then confess that we don't know whether this feeling of success will last forever, but whatever, because for every time we do it, we get that much better, better yet, as we dip our toes into these pools of experience, we'll get that much wetter. See, sweat will drip from the nerves, and that feeling's the worst, so we'll dive in head first. Shedding inhibitions, we'll try new juxtapositions like sex and words, and I've heard all the world's a stage, which means that we can do it anywhere, anytime, with anyone, in any way we want to. This performance is perhaps the most accessible because it's so, I don't know. It's so something, though. See, I just want these words to climax, but we all know that words won't always work in the ways we want them to, and when the words won't come, we'll wait until all involved parties are ready to enthusiastically participate in making this the greatest date in history, because this could be the day that we waited not knowing what would happen, but decided we'd wind up happy with or without words. And then, if the words still won't come, we'll turn to mutual musical masturbation, playing each other like some bumpin' bass, or a sexy sax, or some funky fucking horns. We will take this music and we'll use it in this contextual revolution against stupid words. Used to describe sex if it were a transaction of goods that could be bought and sold, which is getting so fucking old, but as I crescendo, you will hold me firmly. Like a whole note with like 5 fermatas for what feels like forever until finally I rest in your arms for several measures of silent pleasure. And then, if the words still won't come, we'll give them the finger and the thumb and just snap out of it, because this may last less than 3 minutes, but that doesn't mean it can't be the best less than 3 minutes of your life, baby, because this isn't about knowing what's coming, it's about creating, because this isn't about degrading, it's about empowering, because this isn't about being content to wait for consent to continue. It's about wanting and needing to feel that consent deep within you in such a way that everyone else can feel it too, because this doesn't necessarily have to be about I and love and you, because this is about all of us, raising our voices in celebration of our simultaneous existence in the same space. Simple sounds suggesting sights and nights we may never see, so sure, we probably will never be omniscient, but what we lack in vision will make up in repetition. Uh-huh, yes, uh-huh, yes, uh-huh, 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 yes. All right. She used to say she missed me, even as we were standing in the same room, and I sort of got it, but I would still laugh and say, I'm right here, because I never understood what it meant to miss someone who was so close to me until she and I stopped talking. Honestly, though, I'm not that surprised that we see each other so much less often, but I am surprised. Super surprised, because I sat down today to write a sad, stupid poem about what it means to miss someone, using what she used to say as a way to describe how weird it feels to be around the person. Whoa. I forgot my poem. 1 second. I've never forgotten this poem before. That's awesome. She used to say she missed me, even as we were standing in the same room. I sort of got it, but I would still say, I'm right here, because I never understood what my test was. I was so close to me until she and I stopped talking. Honestly, though, I'm not that surprised we see each other so much often, but I am surprised, super surprised, because I sat down today to write a sad, stupid poem about what it means to miss someone, using what she used to say as a way to describe how weird it feels to be around the person this poem was going to be about now that she's never around. But what I found as I sat down to write is that I really want to write about the person who's still sort of here. Here's how it happened. I was free, writing. Free to forget the person this poem was going to be about, and finally free to be honest. I used to be afraid to tell the truth. Now it's what I feel I have to do, so I was writing. Truth. Thinking, speaking, hearing words, putting them to paper, and in my mind I heard this line. Hers was the voice that guided me through the night that was the worst of my life. I stopped. Hers was the voice that guided me through the night that was the worst of my life. I thought about it. Hers was the voice that guided me through the night that was the worst of my life. It was truth. We interrupt this poem in progress to call our friend and to tell her how important she has always been. So I called her. For the first time in weeks, she sounded relieved to hear me on the other end of the phone line, and by the time we'd hung up, we'd set up a Skype date. She'd agreed to knit me a bow tie, and I'd remembered why she was, and is, and will continue to be my friend. I remembered that we shared that cliche shit called unconditional love, but I remembered that for us that meant that no matter how many times either of us fucked up, when fucked up shit happened, the other one of us would be there, ready to cry, drink, drown, or some combination thereof. I remembered the first, the last, and every in-between time she'd confided in me, and I remembered that one time, when she told me she was so soul-tired. In the moment, I thought it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard, so I committed it to memory, then committed it to word, in a document titled Poem Ideas. I am committed to renewing, reviving, and rejoicing in this friendship, but fuck this, because sometimes these fancy ways of saying shit make me forget that not all truth comes in lyrical verse, and vice fucking versa. So now, I'm just gonna spit some truth. I didn't write this poem for any of you. I wrote it for her, so I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't think it deserved a proverbial perfect 10, but to be perfectly honest, I'd be pretty happy with a couple high fives and a hug for my friend. All right. The finest ism, which is an anagram for the feminists, as in they share all the same letters. This is what a feminist looks like, and this is what a feminist cooks like. This is my brain, and that's my brain on drugs. Because for me, that's what feminist theory was. See, I was an addict, the theory was the habit, and clearly I had to use it. I began deconstructing and reconceptualizing. I saw myself reflected in what I read, and I saw the world through a gendered lens, and I realized I'd been living these theories for years, disidentifying instead of shedding tears, finding imagined futures in failure. Worshipping at the altar of alterity, but seriously, for me, feminist theory acted as a drug. For others, that's what religion does, but it's an important distinction to make because feminism isn't a religion. Its tenets aren't nearly so rigid. It doesn't have specific scriptures or prescriptive strictures. It lacks a strict structure. It has the luxury of looseness. Feminism is movement, as in music, and the rhythm hit them in waves. First wave, white women. Working within the existing political system, suffering linked with suffrage, 19th Amendment ratified, tide break. Second wave, white women. Working within the existing political system, lots of legal wins while de-emphasizing differing experiences and identities. This bridge called my backlash, crash, third wave. Redefining radical. Intersectionality introduces inclusivity on a scale as of yet unseen. Folks of every race, class, gender, sexuality, and age come together to rage against the oppressive machine, yet still today, those on the outside looking in see only one thing. The feared feminazi. Which is not the only type of feminist. In fact, the feminazi doesn't even exist, unless you think I'm a feminazi, in which case I would argue that the Nazi Party was not particularly known for its progressive politics or for party playlists featuring the musical stylings of Janelle Monáe, which is to say, fuck you, we're okay, because the feminists know that the finest-ism isn't just an anagram. It's an anthem that fuels the feminist fire underneath this pan, because sure, feminist theory may be the drug that fried the egg that represents my brain, but who the fuck wants a raw egg anyway? These people like to murmurar were the first words I heard before entering the house. I interpreted them as a warning. Father to son, like the one about not wearing pink in public, but these words were really the first volley of friendly fire from the front lines, forcing me to raise my defenses since the folks inside won't let me forget that murmurar means to talk. Shit about my painted fingernails. See, my mom, she used to repeat the mantra before I would head to my dad's house, not home. Sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you. These were once words to live by, but recently I realized that words have been weaponized, used to justify taking lives the world over. Wait. I think I said that last line wrong. Lies have been used to justify taking over the world, but don't get me wrong, because that's beside the point. See, I wrote this poem for me, so it's going to be what I need it to be, and it may sound selfish, but I'm more worried about the domestic, more concerned with what's happening on the house not home front, more focused on the stepmotherland, because I am descended from a long line of sharpshooters whose sharp tongues hurl hollow shotgun shells of words that always seem to hurt worse than sticks or stones ever could. See, bricks and wood can be broken, and so can I. But I'm not talking about my bones. They're words. Rattle around inside my mind, shattering my psyche, and I find that this sharpshooter gene has passed over me like, sure, I can spit hot fire on the mic, but a flamethrower is far less precise than a sniper, and this fire rages out of control in my belly. My esophagus blisters and burns, flames lick my lips, but I can't spit them out fast enough. And I'm not sure I want to, because I've never learned how to turn a weapon on anyone, let alone my own family, and to be perfectly honest, I'm afraid of what might happen if my little sisters get caught in the crossfire. Because when words miss their mark, they ricochet, until they find their way to a head to embed themselves in, and when all is said and done, stray words can make one believe in a gender police state, where gender treason is one reason kids get beaten in the back of the head, and citizens' arrest is everyone's civic duty. It starts with the oldest son. He lets his hair grow too long. Frank becomes Francine to his father. Then it's the oldest daughter. She cuts her hair too short, and Dad starts calling Ruth Bruce. Next is Isabella. She can rock basketball shorts and baseball caps with the best of them, but I've never seen her more embarrassed than when U.S. Customs mistook her for a boy. And her parents just said, that's what happens when you wear this shit. To be honest, I couldn't care less what they said, but the first thing she did when we got home was change into a dress. And this mess brings me to my youngest sister, Maya. You see, she gives me hope because I know she has nothing but the best intentions when she asks me the question, Frankie, Why are your fingernails painted? And I guess that's what it comes down to, because frankly, I don't necessarily believe in happy endings, but I do believe in new beginnings because I believe in giving the benefit of the doubt. So I think I'm going to stop and take it from the top. These people like to murmurar were the first words I heard before entering the house. I interpreted them as a warning. Father to son, like the one about not wearing pink in public, but maybe these words are the only way he knows how to say, "We've missed you. Welcome home." And then I'm going to read a few newer ones. All right, these are shorter, but just as great. All you need is Lubbock. Separated by screens and 700 miles, we sing and speak about how soon we won't see each other again. Not Skype see, but really see, with hands holding, hugged up to a heater. We feel silly scheming about setting up a secret meeting somewhere in between our two cities. One state line apart, but Texas is so fucking big. Still, Lubbock seems special now, which is saying something. Someday I'll meet you there maybe, or at that subway in Post Texas, which is even closer to halfway, but not quite as sexy sounding as Lubbock. That's not something I would have said yesterday, but it's late. So I'll send you 10 words before I sleep, and maybe you'll text me at around the same time, and our words will meet somewhere in between our two cities for less than a second, and Lubbock, Texas will forget to feel self-conscious in their presence, and will instead exude momentary text message-induced sexiness. On Halloween night in 1999, my mama's fingers were fairy godmothers, and makeup was their magical medium of choice. She wiped away my whiskers with a single touch, leaving in their place a light layer of fairy dust. Jesus, she just momentarily miracled me into existence. Seriously. She Cinderella'd me into believing I was beautiful, but before the ball even started, the clock struck me midnight, in the form of a next-door neighbor with no time for a wolf in women's clothing, so I huffed, and I puffed, and I cried. Wee, 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 all the way home. And all right, last poem. If only for a moment. When I was little, I would lay awake and practice making out with the back of my hand, and by the time I turned 12, I'd gotten pretty damn good at it. You see, 2 fingers pressed together tightly might be the best replacement for a pair of lips I've ever kissed, and I should know, because I have some experience with stuff like this. For instance, on the playground at school, I would kiss bullies' fists. Or maybe they'd kiss me. I can't quite remember which. All I can say for sure is my face always came away an array of different lipstick shades, but believe it or not, this made me feel better about myself because the burning of attention paid by someone other than my parents always outweighed the burning of shame or embarrassment, so I never tried to stop any of it. This may not make much sense, but what I mean to say is this. Some people spend their whole lives trying to leave their mark on the world, but I left mine back in 6th grade at O. Henry Middle School when my head got slammed into the side of a soda machine so hard that it left a dent. The kid who did it never said he was sorry, but I didn't need an apology because that dent in the side of that soda machine meant that I mattered to someone, if only for a moment. So will everybody help me count? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Thank you so much.
I don't, that was really fantastic. One thing worth knowing, folks, is if, for instance, Frank just went for 15 minutes, if somehow there was more time at the end and Frank realized, oh, you know what, I've got something that could, 5 minutes or less, you can come up and finish up to you can do multiple slots. I'm not sure if we'll have time for all of that, but just so you know. Up next, we've got Susie, who's going to be presenting Things That I Know. Let's hear it for Susie.
Hi. So this is my third time here now. The first time I came up and read poetry. The second time I read a speech by David Foster Wallace, part of a speech. And so this time I was planning to come up and just kind of talk about things that I know about. But I don't know. So it used to be that the things that I knew a lot about were foreign healthcare systems, berries, and contemporary Chinese art. And I don't know, I think that as I've been focusing more on just contemporary Chinese art, like I know less about the other two. So I was gonna read a part of another speech now. This is, oh wait, okay, I'm also gonna, can I show a YouTube video? Okay, I was considering things that I could talk about, and one of them was this. I don't know if that's how you spell evanescence, but this, like my friend showed me this video a while ago, and it was basically like my favorite thing I have seen on YouTube. Okay, so there's this really small animal called a tardigrade, and it's really cute. It's called a water bear, and apparently it's cool, and there's lots of like facts about it.
Wake me up inside, wake me up inside, call my name and save me.
I don't know, I would recommend looking that up. But I'm gonna read a speech by Dan Pink on motivation. Yeah, if I can find it somewhere. It was a TED Talk, which is cool, and I don't know if it's, I want to show the transcript, yes. Okay, how do I do that though? Show it in English. Yay, okay. So this is motivation, the puzzle of motivation, and it was originally given by Dan Pink. I'm just gonna read it from here. Okay. Now in America, law is a professional degree. You get your university degree, then you go on to law school. And when I got to law school, I didn't do very well. To put it mildly, I didn't do very well. I, in fact, graduated in the part of my law school class that made the top 90% possible. I never practiced law a day in my life. I pretty much wasn't allowed to. But today, against my better judgment, against the advice of my own wife, I want to try to dust off some of those legal skills. What's left of those legal skills. I don't want to tell you a story. I want to make a case. I want to make a hard-headed, evidence-based, dare I say, lawyerly case for rethinking how we run our businesses. So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, take a look at this. This is called the candle problem. This goes with like a diagram of a candle. Some of you might have seen this before. It's created in 1945 by a psychologist named Carl Dunker. Carl Dunker created this experiment that is used in a whole variety of experiments in behavioral science. And here's how it works. Suppose I'm the experimenter. I bring you to a room, I give you a candle, some thumbtacks, and some matches. And I say to you, your job is to attach the candle to the wall so the wax doesn't drip onto the table. Now what would you do? Now, many people begin trying to thumbtack the candle to the wall. It doesn't work. Someday, some people, and I saw somebody kind of make the motion over here. Some people have a great idea where they light the match, melt the side of the candle, try to adhere it to the wall. It's an awesome idea, and it doesn't work. And eventually, after 5 or 10 minutes, most people figure out the solution, which you can see in a diagram that was in the original speech. The key is to overcome what's called functional fixedness. You look at that box and you see it only as a receptacle for the tacks, but it can also have another function as a platform for the candle problem. So now I want to tell you about an experiment using the candle problem done by a scientist named Sam Glucksberg, who is now at Princeton University in the United States. This shows the power of incentives. Here's what he did. He gathered his participants and he said, I'm going to time you. How quickly can you solve this problem? To one group he said, I'm going to time you to establish norms, average for how long it typically takes someone to solve this problem. To the second group, he offered rewards. He said, if you're in the top 25% of the fastest times, you get $5. If you're the fastest of everyone we're testing here, you get $20. Now, this is several years ago. Adjusted for inflation, it's a decent sum of money for a few minutes of work. It's a nice motivator. So, question. How much faster did this group solve the problem? Answer. It took them, on average, 3.5 minutes longer. 3.5 minutes longer. Now, this makes no sense, right? I mean, I'm an American, I believe in free markets. That's not how it's supposed to work, right? If you want people to perform better, you reward them. Right? Businesses commissions their own reality show. Incentivize them. That's how business works. But that's not happening here. You've got an incentive designed to sharpen thinking and accelerate creativity, and it does just the opposite. It dulls thinking and blocks creativity. And what's interesting about this experiment is it's not an aberration. This has been replicated over and over and over again for nearly 40 years. These contingent motivators, if you do this, then you get that, work in some circumstances, but for a lot of tasks, they actually either don't work or often they do harm. This is one of the most robust findings in social science, and also one of the most ignored. I spent the last couple of years looking at the science of human motivation, particularly the dynamics of extrinsic motivators and intrinsic motivators. And I'm telling you, it's not even close. If you look at the science, there is a mismatch between what science knows and what business does. And what's alarming here is that our business operating system, think of the set of assumptions and protocols beneath our businesses, how we motivate people, how we apply our human resources. It's built entirely on these extrinsic motivators around carrots and sticks. That's actually fine for many kinds of 20th century tasks. But for 21st century tasks, that mechanistic reward and punishment approach doesn't work, and often does harm. Let me show you what I mean. So Glucksberg did another experiment similar to this, where he presented the problem in a slightly different way, like something that was on the screen. Okay, attach the candle to the wall so the wax doesn't drip onto the table. Same deal. We're timing for norms. We're incentivizing. What happened this time? This time, the incentivized group kicked the other group's butt. Why? Because the tacks are out of the box. It's pretty easy, isn't it? If, then, rewards work really well for these sorts of tasks where there is a simple set of rules and a clear distinction to go to, rewards, by their very nature, narrow our focus, concentrate the mind. That's why they work in so many cases. And so, for tasks like this, a narrow focus where you just see the goal right there, zoom straight ahead to it, they work really well. But for the real candle problem, you don't want to be looking like this. The solution is not over there. The solution is on the periphery. You want to be looking around. That reward actually narrows our focus and restricts our possibility. Let me tell you why this is so important. In Western Europe and many parts of Asia, in North America and Australia, White-collar workers are doing less of this kind of work and more of this kind of work. That routine, rule-based, left-brain work, certain kinds of accounting, certain kinds of financial analysis, certain kinds of computer programming, has become fairly easy to outsource, fairly easy to automate. Software can do it faster, low-cost providers around the world can do it cheaper. So what really matters are the more right-brained, creative, conceptual kinds of abilities. So think about your own work. Are the problems that you face, or even the problems we've been talking about here, are those kinds of problems, do they have a clear set of rules and a single solution? No. The rules are mystifying. The solution, if it exists at all, is surprising and not obvious. Everybody in this room is dealing with their own version of the candle problem. And for candle problems of any kind, in any field, those if-then rewards, the things around which we built so many of our businesses, don't work. Now, I mean, it makes me crazy. And this is not, here's the thing, this is not a feeling, okay? I'm a lawyer. I don't believe in feelings. This is not a philosophy. I'm an American. I don't believe in philosophy. This is a fact. Or, as we say in my hometown of Washington, D.C., a true fact. Let me give you an example of what I mean. Let me marshal the evidence here, because I'm not telling you a story, I'm making a case. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, some evidence. Dan Ariely, one of the great economists of our time, he and 3 colleagues did a study of some MIT students. They gave these MIT students a bunch of games that involved creativity and motor skills and concentration. And he offered them for performance 3 levels of rewards. Small reward, medium reward, large reward. Okay? If you do really well, you get the large reward. On down. What happened? As long as the task involved only mechanical skill, bonuses worked as they would be expected. The higher the pay, the better the performance, okay? But once the task called for even rudimentary cognitive skill, a larger reward led to poorer performance. Then they said, okay, let's see if there's any cultural bias here. Let's go to Madurai, India, and test this. Standard of living is lower. In Madurai, a reward that is modest in North American standards is more meaningful there. Same deal. A bunch of games, 3 levels of rewards. What happens? People offered the medium level of rewards did no better than people offered the small rewards. But this time, people offered the highest rewards did the worst of all. In 8 of the 9 tasks we examined across these experiments, higher incentives led to worse performance. Is this some kind of touchy-feely specialist conspiracy going on here? No. These are economists from MIT, from Carnegie Mellon, from the University of Chicago. And do you know who sponsored this research? The Federal Reserve Bank of the United States. That's the American experience. So let's go across the pond to the London School of Economics, LSE. Alma mater of 11 Nobel laureates in economics. Training ground for great economist thinkers like George Soros and Friedrich Hayek and Mick Jagger. Just last month, economists at LSE looked at 51 studies of pay-for-performance plans inside of companies. Here's what the economists there said. We find that financial incentives can result in a negative impact on overall performance. There's a mismatch between what science knows and what business does. And what worries me as we stand here in a rubble of economic collapse is that too many organizations are making their decisions, their policies about talented people, based on assumptions that are outdated, unexamined, and rooted more in folklore than in science. And if we really want to get out of this economic mess, and if we really want high performance on those definitional tasks of the 21st century, the solution is not to do more of the wrong things to entice people with a sweeter carrot or threaten them with a sharper stick. We need a whole new approach. And the good news about all of this is that the scientists who've been studying motivation have given us this new approach. It's an approach built much more around intrinsic motivation, around the desire to do things because they matter, because we like it, because they're interesting, because they are part of something important. And to my mind, that new operating system for our businesses revolves around three elements: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy, the urge to direct our own lives. Mastery, the desire to get better and better at something that matters. And purpose, the yearning to do what we do in the service of something larger than ourselves. These are the building blocks of an entirely new operating system for our businesses. I want to talk today only about autonomy. In the 20th century, we came up with this idea of management. Management did not emanate from nature. Management is like, it's not a tree, it's a television set, okay? Somebody invented it, and it doesn't mean it's going to work forever. Management is great. Traditional notions of management are great if you want compliance. But if you want engagement, self-direction works better. Let me give you some examples of some kind of radical notions of self-direction. What this means, you don't see a lot of it, but you see the first stirrings of something really interesting going on. Because what it means is paying people adequately and fairly, absolutely. Getting the issue of money off the table and then giving people lots of autonomy. Let me give you some examples. How many of you have heard of the company Atlassian? Nobody. Atlassian? Cool. It looked like at least half for him. Atlassian is an Australian software company, and they do something incredibly cool. A few times a year, they tell their engineers, go for the next 24 hours and work on anything you want, as long as it's not part of your regular job. Work on anything you want. So that engineers use this time to come up with a cool patch for code, come up with an elegant hack. Then they present all the stuff that they've developed to their teammates, to the rest of the company, in this wild and woolly all-hands meeting at the end of the day. And then, being Australians, everybody has a beer. They call them FedEx days. Why? Because you have to deliver something overnight. It's pretty, it's not bad. It's a huge trademark violation, but it's pretty clever. That one day of intense autonomy has produced a whole array of software fixes that might never have existed. And it's worked so well that Atlassian has taken it to the next level with 20% time, done famously at Google, where engineers can spend 20% of their time working on anything they want. They have autonomy over their time, their task, their team, their technique, okay? Radical amounts of autonomy. And at Google, as many of you know, about half of the new products in a typical year are birthed during the 20% time. Things like Gmail, Orkut, and Google News. Let me tell you an even more radical example of it. Something called the Results-Only Work Environment, or ROWE, created by two American consultants in place at about a dozen companies around North America. In a ROWE, people don't have schedules. They show up when they want. They don't have to be in the office at a certain time or any time. They just have to get their job done. How they do it, when they do it, where they do it is totally up to them. Meetings in this kind of environment are optional. And what happens? Almost across the board, productivity goes up, worker engagement goes up, worker satisfaction goes up, and turnover goes down. Autonomy, mastery, and purpose. These are the building blocks of a new way of doing things. Now, some of you might look at this and say, that sounds nice, but it's utopian. And I say, nope, I have proof. The mid-1990s, Microsoft started an encyclopedia called Encarta. They had deployed all the right incentives. They paid professionals to write and edit thousands of articles. Well-compensated managers oversaw the whole thing to make sure it came in on budget and on time. Years later, another encyclopedia got started. Different model, right? Do it for fun. No one gets paid a cent, a euro, or a yen. Do it because you like to do it. Now, if you had just 10 years ago, if you had gone to an economist anywhere and said, hey, I've got these two different models for creating an encyclopedia, Okay, for creating an encyclopedia. If they were to go head to head, who would win? 10 years ago, you could not have found a single sober economist anywhere on planet Earth who would have predicted the Wikipedia model. And the speech goes on for like 3 more paragraphs, and it's really good. So I recommend reading those last 3 paragraphs, and you can do that on TED. And the speech is by Dan Pink, and it's on motivation. And I need to speak for a longer amount of time, apparently. I have 20 seconds? Oh, okay. So why this speech was significant to me, though, is that in high school, basically what I was doing is like animating and making videos and drawing and like writing in all of my free time. And so my school was like really, really STEM heavy. Like I grew up in Palo Alto, so now I'm out of time. Okay, that sucks. But anyways, that was what my major is.
So with just over 20 minutes, Susie has earned $20. So will everybody help me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Thank you so much. All right, that was fantastic. Thank you everybody for being here for our final Diction for Dollars. I see a lot of new faces, which is great. I see a bunch of old friends of ours as well. A quick reminder that this is all being recorded and broadcast online as we speak. And the way it works is you can earn a dollar a minute speaking up here at the lectern, and you can go up to 20 minutes, although you needn't go 20 minutes, but you can go up to 20 minutes. One quick heads up, so tonight we're going to be having a Toastmasters of Fine Arts reception ceremony for you, starting at 8, running from 8 to 9, and so anybody who has come and used the space during our run here tonight, previous instances, or had a group that come in, you can come and we'll award you your honorary Toastmasters of Fine Arts, a TMFA. Now, unfortunately, the folks who are in here tonight, you won't be able to get into our final publication because we had to print it this week, but everybody else who has spoken at a previous Diction for Dollars has their picture now in our final issue, so please make sure you come and pick one up if you've been here before. Maybe take 2 so you can send one back to your parents as well. And there's a bunch of wonderful texts and articles in there, and all of these. So, but let's go ahead and get more dollars into the hands of our friends here. This is, I don't want to do anything. So next up is Pedro here. Oh, Pedro Salinas, who, Pedro, are you with the 5C, what's it called? The 5C Late Night. Yeah, the 5C Late Night Stand-Up Comedy troupe, and which if you go on to our YouTube page for BESHTx, you can find they did a really fantastic event here and recorded it, and it's now recorded on our YouTube. And I believe you have another one coming up here. Is that right, or did it already happen? Was there? Oh, okay. Well, anyways, if you guys are welcome to come back and try out. Okay. Well, let's hear it for Pedro Salinas, who's going to be doing some stand-up comedy.
This is too much authority for what I talk about. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, oh God, in this little official looking microphone. That's fun. Has anyone ever told you you look like the counselor from Freaks and Geeks? Does anyone see that? Does anyone agree? I can actually pull it up now, and then we can just have fun with that. Anyway, after that, I'm going to read literally the same exact speech. That would be fun. Okay, counselor from Freaks and Geeks. My Googling skills are, Dave Allen is his name. There you go, this guy right there. Nope, too small. Try that again. Anyone see that? It's pretty close. All right, let's pull this down for a second. Oh man, Diction-for-Dollars is great. So much money being earned for very little work, let's be honest. I feel like it's like we never left kindergarten, you know what I mean, in this room, because it's got like really affirming things on the walls, like, don't stop, you're great. And then like everyone gets a degree if they participated, no matter what they do. It's a very we're all winners here kind of attitude about it, which is a nice thing, I guess. You know, you don't get that a lot in other places. And you definitely don't get that in stand-up. I'm so not used to being paid for, oh my God, that's amazing. Like nobody gets paid for comedy pretty much ever. But also, I don't know, just this sort of like affirming, like, yeah, just do whatever, man. Like it'll be great. Because in stand-up, like 100% of the people you talk to like never want you to do stand-up comedy ever again. Like that's sort of how it works. And then if you rise above that, then you make it. All right. This is weird. This ended up being like a depressing talk. I think it's the lectern. The lectern is fucking me up. Oh, I cursed and there's a kid out, which like is weird because it's free speech, so I can say whatever I want, but I also feel bad cursing around children. So there's a little bit of push and pull inside me right now. Oh, is he gonna stay there the whole time? That's great, but oh, this is gonna be so awkward for me. I used to have a worse attitude about it. Yeah, you know, I just won't curse. It'll be a good test of my abilities as a performer. It means I can't do the whole first trick I was gonna do because it's so filthy. Oh God, all right. What do I talk about now? Let's talk about commercials, guys. I watch all my TV illegally, which I'm sure most of you do as well, because we're all spoiled. But sometimes I watch it on Hulu, and sometimes that means I have to watch, or all the time that means I have to watch commercials when I watch it on Hulu. And commercials are terrible. They're the worst thing ever. I don't know if you guys were aware of that. They're uniformly awful and just they kill your brain. And they're like, why is it that every married couple I've ever seen on a commercial is like 2 days away from falling apart? Have you noticed that? Like, they're always just like desperate and like they don't get along at all. The husband is just this dumb, like, I don't know how to do anything. And his wife's like, that's not how you, there's no, why can't it be like a happy couple using a product? That would be fine. I would buy that then. There's a commercial for a storage unit, which why? Why do you need to, I don't understand. That's just something you drive by and like, yeah, this works. But it was like the wife goes in the living room and she has an enormous painting of a unicorn and she's like, honey, I got another painting of a unicorn. And the husband goes, great. Why does that sell storage units? Why does that make me want to use U-Store or wherever it was? Okay, that annoyed me. There was a Gerard Butler commercial that annoyed me, but I won't talk about that because apparently I can't pronounce Gerard Butler's last name correctly. Gerard Butler, that's a tough one. He's got the two R's in his name. Makes you want to just keep adding R's. Gerard Butler. You can do this all day. I don't suggest that you go to the website of this thing and watch 5C Late Night's performance here. It was a disaster. It was horrible. It was one of those things where people, we just believed in ourselves too much, I think is what happened. You can believe in yourself too much. Don't believe people who, don't believe these walls all the time. Sometimes they're good, but sometimes you gotta be like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that well. Like, I need to know that about myself. We were like, it's easy, you know, stand-up is not super hard to plan. It's hard to be good at, but it's not hard to, you just go and you talk. But a group performance is hard to plan. You need to practice because you're not all gonna be on the same page. But we didn't practice at all because we were just like, nah, we're all like, we're gonna kill it. Like, it's gonna be great. And you can't see, but there's a bunch of costume things down here, and I just wore all of them because I was like, well, the more silly stuff you wear, the funnier it is inherently, right? That's how it works. It didn't work. But you know what I mean? But then we finished, and it was like, oh, you guys did great. Like, no, someone needs to punt it. But no, I could theoretically get a degree for doing that. I'm unfortunately not gonna be around for the reception, but so anyway, that was a thing. All right, what else? Let's see. Okay, here's a joke that I have written and told a million times. I'm a senior right now, and that's exciting. That's an exciting thing to be. But it's also really scary because I now have to look for a job, and jobs are scary because I don't know how to do anything. Turns out I have no skills whatsoever. Just learned that about myself. Really good. All right, good moment of education. I don't know how to wave my hands without hurting the mic. That's scary. On my resume, it says that I'm proficient in Microsoft Word. Not impressive, guys. Not an impressive thing. Don't brag about that. I'm not even that good at it, if I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I still don't really get margins. You know what I mean? They confuse me. Like, if you want me to bold something, I'm there, but otherwise, I'm lost. And then beyond the resume, you have to write cover letters, and what you do in a cover letter is you tell your employer why you are specifically a good person to hire for that job, which for me means you lie all the time. You lie constantly. You lie through your teeth every day. And I feel bad about that. I don't like lying. I prefer to be honest, and I'm not very good at it. I'm not very convincing. Like, what I wish is that you could just get real with employers. You know what I mean? You can just be like, listen, I'm not going to be the kind of applicant who has references, okay? And they'll be like, this guy's cool. I like him. He's got batitude. They'll say batitude, then you'll get that receptionist position, man. That's how you do it. Or like, how in romantic comedies, the big climactic final scene is like, the guy's chasing after the girl, and he's like, Lisa! Her name's Lisa. And she turns around, and then what he does is he gives this big final speech that this is it. He's trying to get her back, And so what he does is he lays out all of his flaws, but he means well, so it totally works out. And he's just like, I know I'm a jerk. I know I don't listen, but come on! And then it works all the time. 100% success rate in romantic comedies, that method. I wish you could do that with employers in your cover letters. That would be so cool. You just be like, I know I'm unreliable. I know I have no skills. But I have a lot of love in my heart. And they'd be like, you had me at Dear Chipotle. It would work out. It would work out. Man, is there a kid still in the room now? Oh, cool. Okay, I'll do all right, I lost a comedy contest recently, which whoever really wins a comedy contest, let's be honest, right? I didn't, I lost it. I literally lost the comedy contest. And it was a bummer, whatever, but I felt better later because I got this email from somebody who had been in the audience, and I don't know how he got my email, maybe he has the booker or something, but he was like, hey man, I just want to let you know, my wife and I thought you were really funny, so let's stay in touch, and the next time you perform, we can maybe come see you again. And I thought that was really nice of him, but then I thought about it, and I was like, wait a minute, is this like a weird sex thing? You know what I mean? Like, is that what's going on right now? Like, my wife and I enjoyed you. Like, is that the undertone? Because if so, I'm down, you know what I mean? Like, I'll do it. Fuck it, man. I don't know what either of them look like, but I'd have sex with both of them. Honestly, if I'm going to be... Usually it's the married couple with propositions, the single guy. Can you do it the other way around? Does that work? I'm going to try, man. I'm going to try my hardest. Email him back. Because, here's why I feel this way, is I feel like I haven't had enough, like, interesting sexual experiences in my life. You know what I mean? It's all been pretty meat and potatoes so far. Like, I've had sex with 5 people in my life. They've all been girls. They've all been white. They've all been Jewish. They all resent having gone to Hebrew school. And they are all now critical of Israel. That's every girl. That's my type right there. All of that is what I'm into. And that's too monotonous. You know what I mean? I feel like I need to vary it up a little bit. Because if I just keep on with this pattern, I'm just going to go insane, you know? It's going to be like, white Jewish girl, white Jewish girl, white Jewish girl, tag Romney, a giant squid. Everyone who works at UPS, it's like, what happened to Peter? Oh my God. It went crazy. And it's, you know, like, I don't know, I feel like I have it in me. I've had the thoughts that could lead me. Like, here, I'll tell you a little nugget of truth from my life, and you guys can decide what it means about me. This is the interactive portion of my set. When I was a freshman here, I had this girl I had a huge crush on. I really liked her. I was like, oh, I really want to be with her, you know? And one night I had a dream that we were hooking up, and it was great. It was so great. We were, you know, like, it was sepia toned. We were like in a field. You know, we were both naked. She was naked. She had a huge dick, like an enormous, and it was, I loved it. I was so into it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, this is weird. It was like, oh yeah, give me that. Give me more of that. Give me that D. That's how I felt. You know what I mean? That's how I talked in my dream. And the next morning I woke up and I was like, I'm gonna ask her out today. And then we dated for 6 months. She didn't end up having a huge dick, and it also didn't end up working out between us. So you can see, I don't know, you can decide what that means. Oh God, all right. Oh man. Oh, commercials also. There's another commercial that I saw over the summer that just baffled me. It was a Carl's Jr. commercial, and it was a guy sitting on the couch with his mom, and he was like, "Mom, I'm engaged," and the mom was like, "Who's the girl?" And the guy was like, "It's not a girl," and the mom was like, "No!" And the guy was like, "It's bacon." And there's a montage of him marrying a bacon. But like, why the homophobia? I don't understand. Why is that? Why do you need that to sell Carl's Jr. cheeseburgers? Who is that for? And then the fucking Chick-fil-A guy comes out again. You didn't need to say that. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. Have your shitty thoughts to yourself. You don't need to go out and be like, listen, this is very important that I get this out here. You guys are buying my chicken sandwiches. And you need to know how I feel, and that I feel these people aren't people. You know what I mean? It's like, why? I don't care. Well, I don't care what you think. Now I can't eat chicken at your place, I guess. I never ate a Chick-fil-A anyway. So when I continued not going, it felt like important. Oh, God. All right. I currently don't feel like doing another book, so I'll read you something that I wrote a while ago. It's still like attempting to be funny, so it won't just be a total bummer. But which I don't often get the opportunity to do stuff like this, so I feel like might as well. So do you guys know the band Rush? Are you at all familiar with their music? They're very nerdy. I was very into them when I was in high school, and I wrote a thing about it. So what I'll do is I'll read it and also play some Rush music behind it to, you know, I don't know, just get the whole, words aren't coming because I'm on the internet. That's what the internet does, is it just, you know, you're like, have you ever talked to somebody and they're on their smartphone and it's anything you say, there's no point. Like, you might as well. I just start insulting people when they do that. And then if they get offended, like, they'll get offended at very vaguely. They like won't know exactly what I said. They'll be like, "Hey, that sounded mean. Your tone was unfriendly." Rush 2112. 20-minute version. Give me that shit. All right. How's the volume here? We'll see. Might be too loud. All right. This is called My Ex-Girlfriend reviews the mix CD I Made Her in High School by Pedro Salinas. And then every track is by Rush, except for track 7, which is Sexual Healing by Marvin Gaye. All right, review. When I was a junior in high school, my then boyfriend, Pedro Salinas, gave me a mix CD for the occasion of our 2-month anniversary. It's hard to believe now, but when I received this gift, I was actually excited. I had seen High Fidelity. I knew how romantic a mix CD could be. As Salinas took those steps to his CD player, I anticipated a collection of tracks that would sway gracefully between hope and melancholy, excitement and introspection, passion and tenderness. What I didn't anticipate were 6 songs in a row by the 1970s Canadian progressive rock trio Rush, and the swift and absolute corrosion of my girlish naivete regarding love. Grim is only one of the many words that might describe Salinas' decision to begin his Nightmares compilation with 2112 by Rush, the 20-minute-long suite from their 1976 album of the same unfortunate name. As we listened, Salinas enlightened me with the information that while many people mistakenly believe the lyrics to 2112 were based on Ayn Rand's 1937 novella Anthem, in fact, Rush's drummer and lyricist Neil Peart only noticed the thematic similarities between the 2 words after he finished writing the song. Which only raises the question, how the fuck does someone fucking possibly appropriate the singularly fucking lunatic ideology of Ayn Rand by accident? I had plenty of time to mull this question over as I sat through the song's 4th guitar solo, but instead I stared at the cretinous expression of enjoyment on Salinas' face and wondered how I could have made such the catastrophic mistake of letting this person exclusively wiggle his tongue in my mouth on a regular basis. The second track on Salinas' mix CD is Cygnus X1 Book 1 The Voyage by Rush. It is short in comparison to 2112, clocking in at a mere 10.5 minutes, but it is no less inaccessible for it. One would be hard-pressed, for example, to find a more alienating open lyric than, "In the constellation of Cygnus, there lurks a mysterious invisible force, the black hole of Cygnus X1. To be fair, I perhaps shouldn't count it as a lyric, because these words are not sung, but spoken aloud over indeterminate space noises. In which case, the first real lyric would be invisible to telescopic eye, which isn't really any better. Cygnus X1 Book 1, The Voyage, tells the story of a space traveler who is unwittingly sucked into a black hole, much like I was unwittingly sucked into a poisonous relationship with a tasteless idiot sociopath. If there had to be a song that was our song, this would probably be it. I must confess that as Cygnus X1 Book 1 The Voyage faded out, I began to grow accustomed to the idea that I was being held hostage by a 16-year-old boy and 3 middle-aged Canadian musicians. And call it Stockholm Syndrome, with the overwhelming bleakness of the situation. I have a minute left. No way I can finish all this, so I'm gonna stop. But thanks for listening, everybody. I don't know, I kind of wasted your time, kind of made it worthwhile sometimes. Mixed bag. I made $19 though, so fucking cash money. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So listen, before I can give you your cash, you clocked in at 19 minutes and 19 seconds, so you will earn $19. Are you Pomona for the end? You'll print and sign. All right, so Pedro Salinas with his wonderful stand-up comedy. Let's give him his money. He earned $19, so hand out. Everybody, will you help me? 1, 2,
I couldn't resist. Oh no. Lifelong dream came true. Thank you for being a part of it.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Pedro. That was fantastic. Uh-oh. Thank you, everyone, for being here for Diction-for-Dollars. Indeed, it is just that easy here. We've got a bunch of people signed up. Hopefully we'll get to everybody, but we probably won't get through everybody who's on here, but feel free to keep signing up if you haven't signed up, and we'll see how far we get, depending on how long people go. A reminder, this is being broadcast live on the museum website and is also being recorded. And then you can earn $1 a minute, and you can speak up to 20 minutes. We round down here, so if you were to speak for 9.5 minutes, you'll earn $9. You can speak about whatever you want. You can speak as fast or as slow as you'd like. It doesn't even have to make sense. So anyways, next up, we've got Marissa Cohen. Is Marissa Cohen here? Yes, so let's hear it for Marissa Cohen. She's going to be doing Prove My Mom Wrong.
Hi everyone, I'm Marissa Cohen, obviously. So I heard about this event where you literally just talk and earn money, which is quite amazing for any college student. And I'm not normally one to get up and talk for 20 minutes straight. I'm usually the person listening to other people. So this is kind of somewhat of a challenge for me. And while Skyping my mom today, I told her I was going to do this. She was like, "What are you going to do today?" I was like, "Well, actually, I'm going to go speak and earn money." And she was like, "No, you're not going to speak for 20 minutes straight." And I'm like, "Yeah, actually, I am." So I'm here to prove her wrong. And so the first thing I did when I was trying to figure out what to talk about was I Googled, how do you talk for 20 minutes straight? It doesn't come up with anything. You actually get something along the lines of like how to start a conversation. And I think first they say to introduce yourself, which I guess I've already done. And then they say start talking about, things relevant to both people in the group that you're trying to conversate with. And so I guess I'm talking about this whole event with you. And I'm not sure how many other people have come up here and just started talking about the BESHT event that goes on. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a common topic to start. And I have a ton of things that just pop into my mind that I would love to share with other people that I usually don't. One thing that I was thinking of is like, what if someone who had ADD was up here and just started talking anything that was on their mind? And it's like, wow, that could be really entertaining. Well, I actually do have ADD. It doesn't affect me anymore, and it's not because I take medication, but when I was in first grade, I had a learning processing disorder and I had ADD. And I guess my mom thought something was wrong with me and had me tested, and they found out that that was the case. And, my mom, trying to be a relatively liberal mom, would ask, well, I found out that there's a medication. Do you want to take that? Or do you want to try to do a different process, where you're going to have to go in for neurofeedback, they called it, like twice a week for an hour at a time. This is a first grader trying to make a decision about their life. I think my mom was a little ambitious, but it turned out okay, I'd like to think at least. And being a first grader who despised any sort of medicine, I immediately said, no medicine, no. So I went to neurofeedback, and it's not something most people at that time did or was even really well known. I don't even know if it's well known now. But it's a process where, I'd go in, I'd meet with this doctor who had this large library of books that were really boring to look at. They were literally just, they look like dictionaries, blue and red. Just, that's all they had on those shelves. And then there was a seat, and then there was a TV screen. And there were all these electrical wires. So little first grade self sits down in the chair, and they start hooking these wires up to your head. It sounds creepy, but it's actually not. I guess it was to read your brain signals to understand, to see if you're focusing or not. So when you focus, there's a little machine that can tell when you're focusing, and it'll make a beeping sound. So it's kind of like positive reinforcement. So you focus, and there's like a beep, and you're just like, oh, nice. And then they have, on the TV screen, you'll play a game. So I would often play Pac-Man. And how do you play Pac-Man with your brain? You just focus. And so you'd try to focus on Pac-Man, apparently, but eventually that got boring, and I started just watching the rest of the room. And it doesn't matter what you were looking at, as long as you were focusing, which was quite a thing for me. And I went through this for about a year. That's a lot longer than a month. And so I'd go through, there were a bunch of different games. There's like one where you try to keep the parachute guy afloat, and if you don't focus in enough period of time, it just won't fly and it'll crash, and it's really sad. You'll also have, so Pac-Man, you try to like finish the maze. So they had a bunch of these games, and you can never tell if the method is actually working. So you go here twice a week, you leave school early, you sit here for an hour, and you just stare at the screen or at the books or at literally nothing, and you just focus for an hour. Kind of like meditation almost, when I think about it. But it wasn't exactly the most exciting thing in the world. But it was definitely better than medicine. And then one day, my mom took me on the car somewhere, and we went to a gas station, and I looked up, and I noticed that the gas station had changed one of their signs. So it wasn't blue anymore, it was like red. And I told my mom that. I'm like, look, they changed the sign. And she started crying, because that moment she knew that the neurofeedback had worked, and that I could suddenly focus, and that I noticed things. And she would tell me, this is, you worked for it. It's not something that you just were given. It's not like you just took medicine and suddenly it's better. It's like you had to work for this. And that gave me a lot of confidence to do well in the rest of my life. Any challenge I faced, it's like, hey, you just overcame something that not many kids can overcome without any help from, medication. And I do see kids who, their parents don't realize that neurofeedback is available, and they take this medication, which is, I think Ritalin, it's called, I want to say. And I think my mom had said it was derived from cocaine or something, which was one of the reasons she was a little wary about me possibly taking it as a first grader. Yes, but I do see these people who do get dependent on these drugs at such a young age, and it's really sad to think that they have to take that drug all the time in order to even do well. And I'm very lucky that I was given the opportunity not to. And I've seen people who try to get off the drug, and then their metabolism changes, so suddenly they gain weight, and they exercise, but they can't do anything about it. So I wish more people knew about it. It is expensive. I wouldn't have known as a first grader. I never asked. But overall, I think it's worth it, and it's always important to look at the other options you have besides medicine. And I have to say, I'm very thankful for having a family who looks out for me and tries to help me out that way. And I have to owe a lot of it to my mom, who's a pretty special person and has an interesting story that I think I want to share. She was born in Argentina, and she played tennis all throughout her life. She was a great tennis player in Argentina, I think number 2 in the country, which right now she doesn't actually tell most of her friends. Not many of them actually know this. She practiced all the time. She had to skip a lot of school for it and got a lot of shit for not being at school half the time from her friends who didn't understand that tennis required that she travel, on a Friday or come back on a Tuesday instead of a Monday. So she moved to America when, she was probably around 25. So she came here, she didn't know English at all. No English. And she started working part-time at some Spanish-speaking restaurant, and then she forced herself to work in an environment that forced her to speak English. So she had no choice but to learn. Because working with the Spanish speakers in, whatever restaurant she was working in was not difficult. It was super easy. She still got paid, but she decided that she would take a lower paying job just to learn English. So she did. She learned English, and then she started trying to get jobs teaching people tennis. And she lived in LA. So she decided that, I don't know, I always like when she tells this story, but she, Beverly Hills, I guess, has this, like, in the houses have backyards that come together at, like, an alleyway for the trash cans and the mailboxes. So she went through and she, like, hand addressed in sort of an invitation thing to all these people, every single house offering tennis lessons, because she was a top 2 player. She knew English at this point. So she just started teaching. She ended up getting a lot of responses, and she taught people who lived in Beverly Hills. 90210. I'm totally blanking on the name. I don't know. There's a girl who, oh gosh, I can't remember. Anyway, she got to work with all these famous people just because she went out and did something that nobody even thought of doing. So, I don't know. I thought that was pretty interesting. She has a lot of drive, and she's very creative in the way she thinks. And I would aspire to do things like her. And, I try to believe I'm creative in my solutions. I play tennis too. I play on the team here. I love tennis. She taught me strategy, and my dad also played, and he taught me strategy as well, which is probably my favorite part of the game. Because as much as you can hit the ball as hard as you want, it doesn't do anything. There's a point where everybody can just bang the ball back and forth, and that just gets really monotonous and boring. It's more fun if you actually think about what you're doing. So some of the things she taught me, she taught me to mix up the pace. You have to hit, a lot of times if you just hit a short angle, nobody expects it. So instead of, say, you get a short ball, you can pound it down the line, or you can do slice, you can do anything. But sometimes if you just look like you're hitting the regular shots you've been hitting, and it just happens to go a little bit shorter and more angled, some people really have no idea how to handle that. It's a little funny, because they're very good players, but they're just not used to the change. And another thing, a little less about strategy, but more about random resourcefulness. We were putting the balls away for tennis here, and we were going kind of on a slight slope downhill to the shed. The balls tipped over, and all of them were like rolling down the hill. And so I guess immediately I decided the best possible thing to do was just to lie down as a physical human barrier. I don't know, but I'd like to think that that was something that she's taught me to do, is to not even consider, think about what people would normally do, but just think a little bit outside the box and come up with some solution that people don't expect that actually solves the problem. There are also people who smoke a lot of weed in my hall, and I'm okay with that. They can do that. Weird transition, but it'll make sense in a minute. So they smoke a lot, all the time. And at this point, I'm used to it. It's okay. I lived in a sub-free hall last year, so it was a little bit of a shocker. But instead of worrying about it, the free tape that Pomona gave us is now lining my doorway, so I don't get the smell of smoke in my room. And I have people come into my room all the time, and they look at my door, and they're like, why is it surrounded by tape? And I'm like, well, gotta solve a problem, so do what you can to fix it. And I also want to talk about a couple things that my dad has taught me, because they're very different people. My dad was more of a person who wasn't expecting to bring this up. I'm sorry.
Take your time. That's okay.
So my dad died 2 years ago of a heart attack. Nobody saw it coming. He didn't have gray hair on his head, a couple on his beard, but not really. I don't always cry about it. I try to be strong. But when I think about it unexpectedly, sometimes it happens. And so I've learned a lot from him. He was always made sure he laughed at everything. Like one of the brightest memories was when he would watch football, and there was one instance where, you know, in that pile that everybody gets into and you can't tell who has the ball because it was like a fumble. One of the guys was pointing like the direction, really trying to prove his point, like, yeah, it's this way, but it was the wrong way. He was supposed to be pointing the other way, and his teammate like taps him on the shoulder, and it's like, dude, that way. So my dad was just like cracking up, and he had the loudest laugh, and he was just replaying this over and over and over. And we're like, what's so funny? And he's like, look, you gotta look at this. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, no, look at this guy. And it was really funny, but it was little things like that, just taking the joy in the smallest things in life. And you know, I'm talking in front of you guys about my dad, and like, I'm enjoying it. I'm sharing something. It's not something I normally do. He also learned a lot from his mistakes. So I try to do the opposite. I try to learn from other people's mistakes first. And part of that was his health. You know, sometimes medications are a good thing, but he didn't like them. So he thought you could take care of, what is it, blood pressure or something, with just eating healthy. And he didn't really eat healthy, which was probably the problem. He exercised a lot. Again, part of the whole having fun thing. But I guess you have to realize how important life is and living in the present. So, and how important family is. So, like my little sister, I love her to death. I've shared a room with her since I was 5 years old, and I did that because I shared a room until college, and it wasn't because I had to. It was because I wanted to, and I made that decision when I was 5 years old. My sister was still in the crib, and she was going to be moving to a regular bed, and my mom asked, I was like, oh, I want the baby in my room. Like, come on, what 5-year-old girl wouldn't? Like, of course you do. You're like, I want company. Oh my God, so cute. And she was like, you know, this is a big bed. We're not going to be able to move it out once we assemble it in the room. You're going to have to stay with her in this room until you're 18 and off to college. You can't just leave because it's not fair to your sister when she's older. She'll be upset. It'll hurt her feelings. And I was like, you know, I'd heard that teenagers didn't like to live with their siblings. I knew this, even as a 5-year-old or 6-year-old or whatever. I knew that, and I was like, 18 and off to college. Oh my God, that's never gonna happen. That's like so far away. I mean, here I am, 19 and in college, like crazy. And she I've shared a room with her. I made that decision, and it was the best decision of my life. I don't regret it one bit. We've had pillow fights. We've gotten mad at each other, but it all worked out. I can keep talking for a minute. All right. And so, being there for each other in tough times is always really important. But, she recently was talking about drama in her high school, and I was like, try to give her advice and be helpful. But I still have not moved out of that room, even if I'm in college. I still have the bed. I still stay there when I'm home. I'll be visiting on Saturday, so I live in San Diego, which is really close. I'm going to stay with her, and family matters, and you should always take advantage of every moment. Is that all the time I have? No? 10 seconds? Well, make sure you enjoy all the little things. I think that's important. And I can't believe I'm making money for talking about my life. That's weird.
Just over exactly 20 minutes, Marissa has earned $20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. All right. Did someone leave their scissors up here? Thank you. All right. Thank you, everybody. We're getting, let's see, what time is it? It's 6:30, so we have just about an hour left for the final Diction-for-Dollars. As a reminder, everything is being broadcast live and recorded, and hopefully everybody can stick around afterwards for our Toastmasters of Fine Arts reception, which will happen at 8 p.m., and that'll be followed by a performance by G. Douglas Barrett, who's here from New York. Next up is Erwinda. Are you ready, Erwinda? All right, so Erwinda is coming up, and she's going to do USA Pray Bullying. Let's hear it for Erwinda.
Good evening, everyone. How's everyone tonight? Cool. Yes. So I want to say thank you to Adam and the team that put this Diction-for-Dollar together. This has really been fun, very creative. So I'm going to get started. Times are so troubled, and the world so confused. There's fighting and killing, even children being abused. So much hatred for one another. That all is in the news. Thank you. My topic this evening is regarding an epidemic in the United States of America. And I said the United States of America because America is huge, but the United States is just one part of these Americas. So indulge me, please. Okay? So social bullying. The significance of this presentation on the topic of bullying is because of the epidemic. I remember when I was in elementary, there was a bully. I was a fourth grader. He was a bully. He pushed me, he shoved me. Wasn't bigger than I was. Probably could have whipped his butt, but we were Christians, you know. And at that time, our parents taught us don't fight. Don't fight back yet. That was yet, right? But there was a moment my mom got tired of bullies bothering her children. There's 15 of us, okay? So we couldn't really handle it. That she said, okay, I'm tired of you all coming home and complaining about these bullies. Your father and I have decided, hit them back. To hit you, handle it. So we felt so liberated. You know, we can stand up for ourselves and not, you know, run or, you know, because it wasn't that we couldn't fight. We were Christians. So I'm dealing with the topic of social bullying. I remember in 7th grade, bullies, oh my God. Yes, I remember one girl spit in my food. Wow. I was very shocked. Very much so. Cornered me in the classroom, and I stood up to her. Sometimes people need to remember if people walk away, it's not that they don't know how to fight or they can't handle their own. They choose. It's a choice. I remember I told her, you know, if you say anything to me, you ever touch me, I will kill you. I'll never forget that. That girl, she fled. I never, ever had any problems with her anymore. I remember a bully in high school. He would beat up all the beautiful girls, make them bring money. And I was so angry because about 3 or 4 of them were my friends. And I said, if he ever touches any of my sisters, I'm gonna give him what he needs. I handled him. He crossed my path with my sisters. So bullying existed then, and it is still existing now. Because in our schools, it seems like they say, oh, it's normal, they'll grow out of it. And sometimes your teachers may turn their backs to it. But it's something that needs to be addressed and dealt with, and that's why I chose to talk about this topic. The significance is the definition. Bullying has 2 key components. It is repeated harmful acts. It's not once, it's not isolated, it's repeated. So I engaged in a conversation with one of the ladies at work here, and she was like, you know, we were practicing about your speech on bullying, and you know, I really think that it might start in the home. Have you considered that? And I'm like, you know, I really never thought of that, but I'll search it out. And I totally agree. They have to, individuals, children who see this or do and engage in this, they have to see this type of behavior somewhere. It's just not, you know, just wake up and they're born and they start pushing people and hitting people and spitting on people. They see it somewhere, okay? So it's repeated harmful acts and an imbalance of power. It involves repeated physical, verbal, or psychological attacks or intimidation directed against a victim who cannot properly defend him or herself because of the size, the strength, or because the victim appears to be outnumbered, appears to be less psychologically resilient. Here I have a picture of children, junior high, and they're treating this gentleman really wrong. And I know how that feels very horrible. So we know it exists. There is a problem we need to do something about. It is an unwanted aggressive behavior repeated for a short or long period of time. And when a person uses access to embarrass a person with information, usually invading that person's space or belongings or privacy, to control, willfully and intentionally to control them, we know that that's clearly bullying. Bullying happens repeatedly, and it is intended to create tension, conflict, and strife. Hurt and bitter people practice bullying to hurt people. You ever heard of that saying that says hurting people enjoy hurting people? Hurt people engage in hurting because there's something going on the inside with themselves. Why do bullies bully? Go back up. Go right back up. All right. Examples of bullying. It includes assault, tripping, intimidation, rumor spreading, isolation, demands for money, destruction of property, theft or valued possessions, destruction of another's work, and name calling. In the United States of America, there are several other schools recognized a form of bullying such as sexual harassment, repeated exhibitionism, sexual propositioning, and sexual abuse involving unwanted physical contact. Now we know there's cyberbullying now. Wow. Because of the high technology that we have here in America, social bullying has even escalated with regard to computers. It is a crime, though. More examples of bullying are ostracism based on perceived sexual orientation, hazing in upper-level high school athletes, imposing painfully embarrassing initiation of rituals to new freshmen. Bullying entails, but is not limited to, repeated acts by someone perceived physically or psychologically more powerful. Kids speak about bullying. What if the kids you bullied at school grew up and turned out to be the only surgeon that was around who could save your life? How would you handle that? Open up your eyes and you have surgery with a person that you was really mean to. That wouldn't be too sweet. Another kid said his response to bullying is,